identification, that how we can identify the objects on the web page and how we can extract them from the web page using the Selenium code. Fine, so that is what we are going to do today. Anything that you see on the web page is basically an element, be it a normal text, be it an image, be it a link, button, anything that you can see, these all are elements on the web pages. Even if if I right click on this page, which is open right now, if it loaded, I'll inspect this page. So this is the page that I get like, right? This is what I am getting like. If I'll just, yeah, somewhat like this. So this is basically called the page source of the particular page that is loaded on the screen right now. And this is a response from the server that we get whenever we load any of the page. Every page will have different one. So it's totally the server response, and this particular page source contains a number of tags which have multiple attributes. Like over here, if you can see that these are the tags. The tags in your purple shade you can see over here with the angular bracket. These are the tag names: div, then div, script. Likewise only we have another tags as well. If I'll show you more, this HTML body, div again, script tag. These all are these tag names, and along with these tag names we have the attributes in the orange shade. Fine, we using the attributes only we'll be extracting them from the web page. Like this div class has a class, it has an ID and it has a role. So we'll be discussing that which are the mandatory attributes and which are the optional attributes. Fine. So I'm not going to take this page only. I'm going to take the page which is having almost all the elements that you will find on any web page. And the best example is facebook.com. The reason is because over here you get the text box as well. The static text which is already inside the page source, you will find them inside the tags. I'll show you how. Then after you get a drop down over here. This is a drop down. Radio buttons, a sign up button and a image as well is over here along with the link. Just one thing is not over at this page, that is the checkbox. For checkbox we'll take some another example. But if I'll inspect anything on this web page, like if I'll inspect this create an account text, I just need to right click over that element and just need to click on this inspect. Fine. Now over here, this is the inspector screen over which you will get all the details of that particular element from the page source. What I'll do is, it's opening in a new window. You can change the format in which you want. You want it at the left side, you want it at the right side or at the bottom, you can do so. So I would like it to be at the bottom, so I have shifted it down. Now coming to this text, the create an account text that we inspected, right? So it's inside a span tag and already this text is written in those tags. The same way if I inspect this text which is just below that, that is inside a division tag. And also here is also the text written. Fine, the same way if I'll inspect any element like this text box, then also it has an input tag and there are a number of attributes that I can get over here. So looking like this will become a very tough job to understand which element is having which tag and what are the attributes that it may carry. So it's better that I'll open up a Excel file, and in that Excel file I'll keep a note of all the elements along with the tag names and the attributes it can have and it should have, means the mandatory attribute and the optional attribute. Okay, so once the Excel file is started, mainly on the web page there are components which are restricted. Like if I'll just note them down first, that which elements you may find on the web page. So I'll just fill object then we'll discuss the tag name, then the mandatory attribute, and the optional attribute. Starting with, we will discuss with the mandatory attribute first, then at last we'll talk about the optional attribute at one go. Fine. So the common attributes that you will find is a text, a simple static text box, a radio button, checkbox, link, image, drop down, and what else is left? A button, a simple button. So these are the most commonly occurring objects that you will find on any of the web page. Except for these only, just the specification may be different, but almost these will be over at your page. Fine. So we will be talking about them one by one in detail. Like we'll start with text box. Fine, we'll discuss the tag name, mandatory attribute, and then we'll move further to the next one. So at the site facebook.com only, there are a number of text box. Right, we have already seen this new password text box, right? So it has the tag input, then it has attributes like type, class, name, ID, and rest of the things. Now, which is the mandatory attribute? We'll compare it with another text box. Like if I look for this one, this first name text box, it also has the input tag along with the attribute type, and the type is text. Usually whenever you will find any of the text box on the web page, it will have the tag name input. The tag name will be input for the text box, and the mandatory attribute will always be the type. And what the type will be? It can be text or it can be something that the designer has given. Like for example, over here, this email text box that you can see, it does not have the type text. It has email. That's totally up to the designer. But commonly you will find the type is equals to text for a text box. Fine. This is about the text box. Oh, I just wrote it into the another one. Now comes the next one, that is a radio button. Now radio buttons are very easy to identify on the web page. Why? Because the radio buttons are always in the same group. You will find them easily because they will have the same name. Like if I'll inspect any of the radio button from here, you can see over here that it has a tag name input. That's the tag name the radio buttons will have, and the type will be radio. Just to inform that what is the type of element that we are working with, just to make sure, that is why the type is radio over here. And over here you can see that the name of this attribute is this, and if I inspect some another radio button, so that also has the same name. And the third radio button that I have on this page, so three of them has the same name. You can see over here. So this way the radio buttons are always in a group and you can extract them and identify them by the name of their group. Okay, this is a thing that you should be remembering, because by the time we move further and we get an exercise to work with the radio buttons, at that time this is going to be very much helpful. Fine, because you won't be worrying to extract the another locator, you just need to check the name. Fine. So we have seen in the radio button that it has a input tag as, the tag name as input and the mandatory attribute as radio. Okay. Then we come up with the checkbox. The next element that we talk about is checkbox. Over at the facebook.com you will not find any checkbox. So for that I have another URL that I have chosen, that is rediffmail.com. So over at that rediffmail.com, if I'll go, you will see the sign in button on the main page. Over here you will just find out the sign in link over here. Just need to go over this for the checkbox, and this is the checkbox that we get. So if I'll inspect this checkbox, you can see over here that this checkbox has a tag name input and the type as checkbox. So you are checking that the type is occurring with almost all the elements that we have seen. So that's why we are considering it as the mandatory attribute. There are another attributes as well. For that I'll come later on. Okay. So for checkbox we have tag name as input and mandatory attribute as checkbox. Fine. Now moving further, we come up to a link. So I'll will go back to the page that I was using, facebook.com. Over at this page, I have a link for this forget an account in case I forget my password. So what this link is going to do, if I'll inspect it, the tag name that this link or any link that gets is the A tag. This A tag is basically called anchor tag, and the mandatory attribute, its mandatory attribute is href, and you can see that it's having a link inside. The link is basically of that page where the page will be routed once I'll click on this link. So this is the mandatory attribute for a reason. They cannot skip this particular part. So we have seen for the link that the mandatory attribute, so the tag name is anchor tag and the mandatory attribute is href with the link whichever is given. Okay. Now coming to the image. Now over at this page you can see this connecting people image, right? So this is the image only. If I'll inspect this image, you can see that this is the image that is being placed over at the facebook.com. Now the tag name that it has is img, the short form of image, and the mandatory attribute is src. Why mandatory attribute is src? Because the link that is given over here at this particular tag over here, it's basically the path from where this image is being loaded. So that's why it's the compulsory, the mandatory attribute. These two attributes you will find. Along with that there are also another attributes that's totally for the designing, that how the particular image is going to look like, what's the look and feel it's going to give the page, right? So the tag name is image and the mandatory attribute is src. Okay. Now moving further to the drop downs. Drop downs are usually available on the pages where you sign up for your details or you're giving some details regarding, but it's not always that if the date selection is looking like this, so it's a drop down. It's not at all compulsory. So you need to make sure that whichever element you are checking, it should have the proper tag name that is being discussed over here. Like the drop downs which are available on the web page has the tag name select. If the tag name is not select, that means the drop down you are inspecting is not a it's not a drop down or a combo box. It's just a normal CSS selector that has been applied over, and you need to deal it the other way you are dealing the another elements. That we'll see later on. We have the exercise over that I'll give you once we are moving further. by the time, but the difference between those two should be completely clear, that only the tags which have select with them are the drop downs. If they don't have the select tag, they are not the drop downs. Fine. So for the drop down we have tag name as select, and it does not have any mandatory attribute. It will not have any mandatory attribute because it's totally depending upon what is the drop down being used for. It can be used for the date selection, it can be used for the country selection or anything else. So it does not have any mandatory attribute. So over here it's not applicable. Okay. Now comes up is the button. Button on the web page comes up when you are filling up some form and you are at last going to take all the details and going to submit it. Because over here on this page also we are having two forms. One form is this email ID and password, and the second form is this one, the create an account form. So it's also going to collect all these details, and when I'll click on the sign up, along with all the details, it is going to proceed further. So it's a kind of submit button that we'll be using. So over here you can see that this button that I have inspected, the sign up button, it has the tag name button with the type submit. And if I look for the another button on the web page, that is login button, it has a tag name input with the type submit. Fine. So for buttons, it is not compulsory that there is only one tag. There can be two tags. So you just need to be aware about both. One is the button tag name and one is the input. And again, type will be submit as I told you. Okay, these are the commonly found elements that you will see on the web page. Now we are left with the text. Now text is not bound with any of the tag names. It can have any tag name. Like for example, if I look for this Facebook text, so it's inside a I tag. The same way if I'll inspect the rest of the static text, it's inside a div class. It's inside a div tag with a class. Then this email or phone text, it's inside a label. And if I look for this create a page, this is a link, this one. So this is inside a div tag again. Right, so anywhere I am looking for, all the text I am looking for, they are inside the different tags. It's inside a p tag. Fine. So the text are not bound with any of the tag name. It can be inside a div tag, a u tag, I tag, h, p tag, label tag. Means there is no limitation for the text. You can just look for the text and inspect whichever tag name is being used. Plus, it's using number of different tags for having the text on the web page. So no mandatory attribute is being assigned to it. It's like it can have the another attributes or it can have no attributes. Okay. Now this was about the mandatory attributes. Now moving further to the optional attributes. There are three main optional attributes, namely ID, name and class. Fine. Now when we talk about ID, name and class, these are the three tags, and all these elements that we have discussed till now, they can have 0 or more optional tags. It can be a possibility that they are having no of the optional attribute, or they can have all of the optional attributes. But out of these optional attributes only, if the element is having ID or name as the attribute, then to extract them from the web page, these two attributes are the best. Why? because they are unique on the web page. If some of the element has been given a name or a ID on the web page, that same name or ID is not going to be given to another element on the same web page. That's a rule. Whenever the page designing is being done, they make sure that this happens. Why? If I'll inspect any of these, like if I'll inspect this email or phone, so you can see over here that it has optional attributes name, ID and class. 3 of them are there. It can be done that the same element can have same ID and name. That is fine. You can use any of the optional attribute. But it's not possible that if this text box is having name as email, so the second text box which is over here will also can have the same email as the name. That's not possible. So this is the property of these two optional attributes. Coming to the class attribute, the class attribute can be common. It can be common to a number of elements. Why? Because the classes are basically responsible for the look and feel of the element on the web page. You can see at this point at the right hand side where my cursor is right now, in these styles, there are the description for the classes given. Like if I look for this input text, this one you can see, this input text class you can see, and over at here in the styles, this input text class is over here and it has some properties given, like what will be the border color, what's the margin, what's the width of this particular class, means whichever element is going to have this class, what will be the width of that element. So classes are responsible for the look and feel, and number of elements can share them. They are very useful when we have to extract number of elements with the same class. So at that time this class attribute is very good. But if you have to identify the unique element on the web page, then the ID and name attributes are going to help you a lot. Fine. Any doubts in this part, in the object identification? Any question? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that I got your point. That is a different topic that I'm coming to in some time. I just wanted to know that that we'll see in some time. Yeah, I will see in some time. Let's just extract the elements using these two attributes. Then we'll come forward to the next one. Fine. Yeah. So this is done. This is the kind of table that you can create when you are extracting the elements in front of you to make sure you don't get confused over the elements. Now we need to extract these elements from the web page. How I can do that? So the syntax is quite easy. We need to use a class. There is a class. If you'll go to the official documentation of Selenium over here, on the official website of Selenium, API docs, yeah, over here, and these links we have already seen the WebDriver class, that what is the WebDriver class going to do. There is another class, that is WebElement class. Now if we look for this WebElement class, there are a number of actions, there are a number of functions generic functions that we can fire on any element on any of the browser. Fine, you can see over here that I can perform a click action on any element. We'll come to these in just some time. The find element, these are the commands that we are going to use to extract the element just by their locator. If I am using class name, then I'll give this one. If I'm using ID, then I'll give this one. The name, if I'll give, so I'll give this one. Fine. The same way, there are another functions also over here, like get attribute, ID is displayed. So there are a number of functions that we are going to work on. If you want, you can read them from here. And also there is a class by class. This by class is having all the locators that we can use to identify, to extract the elements from the web page. Right now I am talking about this ID and this name. We'll come to the next locator in some time that you will see. Okay, so what we are going to do is, using the ID and name, I'll be extracting some element. So over here in my Eclipse, I already have some of the classes made. So what I'll do is, in the Selenium Basics, I'll create one more module. Python module, and I'll name it as object identification. Okay. Now I'll close rest of the tabs. Now we have already seen how we can open up a browser, go to the URL, right? So that thing I'm going to do first. I'm not making the test case right now. I'm just making a general code that I can run simply as well. You can try with the PyTest, making the test classes. So I'll say WebDriver, the reference dot Chrome. The Chrome instance will be open. Then I need to get to the URL. Which URL I want to go? Then after, once I am at that URL, what I need to do next is, I need to extract any element on this web page. Like for example, let's say I want to extract this element, this mobile number text box. So I'll inspect it and I'll look for the attributes it have. It has a name, it has an ID. So what I'll do is, I'll extract the element using the name. I'll use this and I'll go back and I'll say a variable, let's say text box is equals to driver dot find element by. This find element command that you can see, this is a generic command that in Java use the syntax, right? That you give the by the locator name and then you give the value, right? This is going to be. So what locator I'm going to use? Its name. And what's the value of this locator? This one. Now suppose I want to send some text inside this particular text box. For suppose, is this fine now? Yeah. So for suppose I want to send some data inside this text box, I want to write something inside. So how will I be able to do that? That's quite easy. I'll use this variable that in which I have stored the element after extraction. I'll say text box dot send keys. Now whenever I have to send some data inside some text box, then I will be using this send keys function. I showed you a number of generic functions. This function is out of those. Fine. So whatever I want to send inside, I can have it over here like a random number. Okay. And if I run this code, I'll just will say simply run it as Python run. It will open up the URL facebook.com, and over in my text box it sent the text that I have given. Fine. So this way I can extract any element from the web page. This I can do in a single step as well. Like for suppose, this is a generic command that I have used, driver.findElement. I am giving the locator over here and the value to it. Now if I know that I am going to use the name locator, so I can say text box equals to driver dot find element by name. I will be using name. I just need to give that value over here. What's the value of the name attribute? And I can send a text. That is also going to run perfectly fine. Again, I can have any random text. I'll comment this for the time. And now if I run this, again the same thing happened. The same text box has been populated with the text I sent. And this thing I can do in a single command. Instead of taking a variable, I can say driver dot find element by name dot send keys. I can send any data. Okay, now if I'll run this, this is also going to be running absolutely the same output, just the three different ways we have seen. Likewise, if you are using any another locator, for that as well, there are different functions. You can see again the text box got populated. The same way like this, there are another functions as well. Over here, if I'll just show you the web element class. Like this, if I'm using class name, ID, link text, name, partial link text, tag name. We have seen the tag names. Using that also I can find the element, right? And then the XPath. Okay, so these are the functions that we are going to use throughout the time we are extracting the elements. Now coming to the topic that in any case, any of the element on the web page does not have any of the optional attribute. Fine, none of the attribute over here has the, like for this Facebook text, for suppose. This Facebook text that you can see over here, it's inside a I tag, or inside that I tag there is a U tag in which this Facebook is written, and this Facebook text does not have any of the ID, name or class name. So in that case, how am I going to make the element extracted from the web page? How I'm going to extract it? That question comes up in mind. So for that, there is a very simple thing that we use another type of locator, and what that locator is, that we'll talk about. Or let me just write it over here only. The locator is called the XPath. Fine. Now XPath is a unique address for those elements which does not have any of the optional attribute, plus if in any case the attribute has the optional attribute, then also you can use this XPath. This is going to be the unique address. Likewise, we have our specific address of our house. The same way, the XPaths are going to be working. Fine. Now, when we talk about XPaths, there are two different types of XPath. One is the complete XPath, complete or absolute. Don't get confused if I say absolute XPath in between. So it has two names, complete or absolute XPath. And the second one is the partial or the relative XPath. Fine. So these two XPaths are different from each other in not in that big turn, but yes, of course they are different. I'll tell you why. Starting with the complete XPath. When we talk about the complete XPath, it starts from the head of the document. That means it starts from the starting of the document. Document start. Now when I talk about document start, it means that from where the page is starting, and the page is starting from this tag, from this HTML tag. So whenever I'll be making the complete XPath by my own, or I'm just taking it some help of the tool, then the complete XPath will be started from the HTML tag, then going further to the next tags over here as soon as we move further. Fine, so if I have to make the complete XPath by my own for some of the element, like for say this Facebook text, and I want to get the text of this, how will I be able to do that? So just hit Control F over here. You will get a option to write down. Over here you can make the XPath by your own. Fine. So if I have to make it, how will I start? I'll say HTML, the start of the document. As soon as I'll move further, if I'm moving in the right direction, then it will be highlighting in the yellow. Fine. So right now there are number of tags that are being highlighted for HTML. So will move further and I'll say HTML slash the / to move further. Now my Facebook text is inside the body tag. There is head tag as well, but inside the head tag there are different components. So I won't go into the head tag. That's not what I want to do. I just want to go inside the body tag. So I'll say slash body. Then moving further, there is a script tag. There are parallel tags. Now when I talk about parallel tags, whichever tags are at the same level and are coming like this at the same level, they are parallel tags. So it's totally dependent that whichever tag you want to go in, you should be very careful about that. If the element is inside the first parallel tag, then you have to specify like div, like my tag is div where I want to go, and which parallel tag it is lying at. What's the location for that? It's at the first tag. Fine. So this is the tag where I want to go. Inside this div tag as well, there are parallel tags. So where I want to go, that I need to specify div to. Now moving further, I have to follow this hierarchy down below to reach till this point. So that is what we are going to do. Now they might be at the parallel tags, there can be parallel tags as well. Right now it's not. Here it's not. So they are basically the normal tags, there are no parallel tags. So if you will give the div only without any number to it, that's also going to work fine, like div. So 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to go to 5 div tags. Slash div. So 5 of my div tags are done. Okay, it's highlighting it somewhere else. Might be I am at a wrong location. It's not highlighting the second. Yeah, I am at a wrong location, that's why. So over here, after the body tag, it feels like they have changed the architecture of the site. That's why it's not highlighting. Otherwise, it always does happen that HTML tag is always 1. There are 4 HTML tags coming now, so there might be some change in the site. But otherwise, if you have to make it, then this way you are going to make the architecture that I was following, the same way you need to do. But it's not always like you have to make it yourself. You can just extract the element, just inspect that element, right click over the highlighted part, and you will get the option of copy. If you will click on copy full XPath, then it will give you the complete or absolute XPath. And this is the way it's going to look like. It's exactly the same that I was following. There might be some issue that it was not highlighting. So this is how my complete XPath is actually going to look like. If I'll remove it, this one. Fine. So if you have to copy the XPath, you don't need to make it every time. Just use the tool copy option and get the XPath. Now the same way there is another XPath over here. This is the relative or partial XPath. How this XPath is different from the complete XPath? It is not going to start from the start of the document. Instead, it will look for the tag name which has an optional attribute ID or name. Fine. Like for this Facebook text over here, it does not have ID or name. So it will move further one tag above and look for the optional attributes name and ID. It does not have, then it will keep on moving ahead until unless it will find a tag which has a ID or a tag. Fine. Now this division tag over here has a ID. So this can be used to make the partial XPath. So what I'll do is I'll remove it from here and I'll say / div square brackets @ I need to specify that whether I'm using ID, name or which of the optional attribute. I'm using ID. So I'll say @ID is equals to, in the single quotes, I'll give the ID name. Fine. So there's some issue. It's not highlighting the page. Let me just make it once again. Let me just inspect it again. Or let me refresh the page as well. Okay. I'll inspect this element again. / div @ID equals to there is some issue. It's not highlighting. Otherwise, it highlights the text in yellow whenever we are making. It's not highlighting. There might be issue with the inspector screen or something. But over here, this is the way that you will start the partial XPath with the element which has the tag name, which has the attribute ID name specifically. Preferably it goes with ID or name. You can use another attributes as well, like the attributes which are given along, like this data reference given, like the same way you can use them as well, but ID and name are preferred over. Then again the same you need to follow /div /div /div. Fine, you need to do that, so I'll just follow it. Div slash div. Now I have to go 4 divisions down. Slash h1 a I and u. So I have reached at the location, but it's not highlighting. So I'll do one thing. I'll just note it down on the notepad and show you how it actually looks like. This is the way it's going to look like and how it's different from the complete XPath. Now, why am I saying that we are not that they are different, and we also refrain ourselves from using the complete XPath? Because in any case there is a structure change, there is a change in the design of the web page, and we are using the complete XPath. So what we have to do is we have to reconstruct the whole XPath, because there can be some changes, there can be some additions of some different tags, there can be deletion of some tags, right? So that's why we will be refraining ourselves from using the complete XPath. At some points it only gives you the complete XPath, there is no solution to it, but you can choose for the partial XPath and you can look for the element which has this attribute ID or name, and you can make the XPath by your own as well, the partial XPath. Fine. Again, you don't have to construct the partial XPath every time. What you need to do is right click over the highlighted part after inspecting the element, go to the copy option and click on copy XPath. Fine. And if you'll search for this is going to give you this particular output, which is actually the same. See. This is how it's going to look like. Fine. Whenever you are copying it, it's going to give you double quotes over here. So replace it with the single quotes and you are good to go. Okay. Now there are tools also available to make the XPath accurate. Like for Chrome, there is a tool called CrowPath. You can go into the add-ons and you can get it added into your Chrome. This is the CrowPath. Now it's going to give you all the details about that element, that what is the absolute path, that means complete path, what's the tag name, what's the partial XPath, if it has some ID, name or any other details. That's all is going to be given into this CrowPath. If any case you are making the partial XPath by your own and it's not being found in the correct way, it's pointing out to different elements at the same time. So what you can do is you can take the help of this CrowPath. It's going to give you the accurate XPath over here, like this way it's giving you over here. This is basically over here, it's using the JavaScript function, the contains function and the text. The way you can make it is simply, you just need to know the tag name. I have the tag name U for this Facebook, and I'll say text is equals to whatever the text is of that particular element. Just find me that. So this is another way that your Facebook text is going to be extracted on the web page. If you have to extract some of the text on the web page, then you can do this. Just give the text of that particular element. Fine. So this is also going to work fine. This is also a partial XPath. Okay. The same way is with the Firefox. If you want to extract the element on another browser, the same way it's going to be. Just that sometimes what happens is the Firefox browser gives you the complete XPath. It's totally random that whether it's going to give you complete XPath or a partial XPath. That you cannot say on Firefox. In many ways, Chrome is better for inspecting the elements. So you can try on both, that whichever you find easy to extract the element on, you can, and you can keep it this way, and you can make your own XPaths as well. Fine. So now if I have to extract the text out of this, let's say I'll use this XPath first and then I'll move on with the next one. So I'll go back to my Eclipse and I'll say driver dot find element by XPath, and I need to give the XPath, and what I want is to get the text. To get the text, what function I'll be using is, there is a text function. That's it. That's it what you need to do, and you just need to print this, right? So you can just have it like this also, or you can have it into a variable. If I'll run this, the page is loaded. If I'll go back on my Chrome, on my Eclipse, you can see that my Facebook text is coming over here. I can use the another XPaths also, like this one I can use, the one I have made it. This is also going to return me the same output. The page is loaded. Again, I got the same text. Fine. So this way you can make your own XPaths, you can copy them from the tool and you can work with them. Now, any doubts in this XPath? Okay, so I hope the question that you were asking earlier is clear enough with you, that how the context is going to be different from Java in Python. I hope it's fine. You're okay. So I'm just going to end this class with this topic only for today, because object identification is having a number of topics as well. So I won't do that in a one day. We'll continue it once you are back, that is on Wednesday you said. So that time we'll be covering. Till the time you just practice using the XPaths and try to extract a number of elements, like the table, that tabular form that we have created. Just try to make it and take the example of a web page which almost have all the elements. Try to extract them and see what comes out to be. Fine, just that you do that and you will have a practice over the extraction of elements. Okay. So thank you. Do practice and I'll see you in the next class. Yeah, you're welcome.